My guest today built something that didn't exist, a home for Africa's tech ecosystem, an all-in-one media platform, events company, and talent network woven together into something that now reaches over 1.5 million people every month. Caleb Maru is the founder and CEO of Tech Safari, the platform building the social infrastructure behind Africa's tech and business ecosystem. He's convened leaders from the World Bank, Netflix, Paystack, and GIZ, Germany's Agency for International Cooperation. He's backed over 30 early-stage companies through Proximity Ventures, which he also co-founded. In other words, Caleb is figuring things out by doing them. But what I found most interesting while talking to Caleb wasn't the scale of what he's done. It was the path. Non-linear, obsessive, full of pivots and hard lessons. He's thought deeply about what actually determines success. And spoiler, he thinks most people are optimizing for the wrong things. We talked about project selection, burnout, building systems that function, what it means to have range, and what's coming next for Tech Safari. I'm your host, Ashwarya G. Rai, and this is Next Gen Doers. Welcome, Caleb.
Great to be here.
Let's get into it. What's got you excited lately?
A couple things. It's a new year. It feels weird saying that because we're in February already.
Yeah.
But we've had some really a very exciting projects we're doing right now in the diaspora space. So I'm very excited by that. Hopefully more to share soon. But the whole idea is I'm Ethiopian diaspora. I grew up in Australia. I came back to the continent and now live in Kenya, working in the tech space. And I think that whole transition was really tough. It was not tough in the sense that it was difficult, but there's a lot of social things you have to do to eventually move back to your home country or continent. But I think what I've realized lately is that a lot of diaspora also feel the urge to come back and contribute and do something. So hopefully this project that we're working on will make that easier and support the flow of diaspora back so that the best talent is working on hard problems.
Oh, that's very cool. I'm so excited and I wish we could know more, but we'll wait.
TBD. Yeah, we'll do a part 2. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Rapid fire question, and it's just the one.
Uh-huh.
What to you is the opposite of doing, and please don't say not doing? And talk more about the feeling of it. So if I say don't do anything or don't do, what is that to you and how does that feel?
Thinking. The opposite of doing is thinking, I think. Yeah, that's the quick answer. The longer answer, and one of the things I use this phrase a bit back when I was doing more operational stuff, which is living fast, thinking slow. So how do you execute really quickly, but also think deeply and have time for that? And I think when I'm not doing things, I'm usually sitting still and letting ideas come to me, or I'm talking to people, or I'm exploring stuff so that the thinking is coming, and then better ideas come up, or learnings come up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. It wasn't what I was expecting.
What were you expecting?
I dig it because I think when I think of the opposite of doer, it's more of a negative connotation coming to my mind. And I do like that it's not a black and white thing. It's kind of almost complementary, what you described.
Mm-hmm. One other take on that is there's a really exceptional entrepreneur, Brian Armstrong. Yeah. He's the guy who started Coinbase, which is one of the biggest tech companies. And he has a really good point, which is also very true, which is sometimes you don't know. And so the actual thinking is by doing, you do to learn. And I think it's important to caveat that sometimes you just have to start to figure things out and to think properly about things by getting results or getting data. But it is important to also think separately.
Yeah, heard. So on this podcast, we're obviously focused on impact and about young people that are moving to fix gaps, if you will. And in your own words, what would you say was the gap that you saw when building Tech Safari? And just tell us a little bit about that. What was the moment, the aha moment?
Yeah, so I was traveling around Africa. It was 2022. I had started a company in Australia that it was my first tech foray, and me and a friend started it. And it was really in the ed tech, education and recruitment space. And we're trying to figure out how do you teach people tech skills, a lot of people tech skills from underserved markets, and then build a great pipeline of talent to then put into great companies. And we thought if you could build that, like you could support a lot of job creation across the continent, but also B, have like an incredible engineer from Nigeria or India working like this amazing job in the US. And that's actually great, arbitrage for them. They get to work this great global job, and we can take a recruitment fee on that. We built the first part really well. And in building that, our big user base came from Nigeria. So I was traveling around Africa, learning who was taking our courses, what the ecosystem was like. And as I was doing that, I was learning so much that I started writing about the things I was picking up. I was like, hey, I didn't, I'd post on LinkedIn, this is what I used to pay for my coffee today. It was M-Pesa. It was mobile money. Or today I traveled from A to B, but it was on the back of a motorbike. And this is how that industry works. What I found was people were responding to it, providing insights, being like, that's really cool, didn't know that. And I had one post that just went viral. And that's when I realized, I think what I'm doing here is not actually just explaining what I'm seeing. It's actually providing context for people who don't understand technology or business, or even just different countries across Africa. And I thought that was a Africa to the world problem. Okay, people in the West or people in Europe or Australia don't understand what's happening in Africa. It actually was bigger than that. It was an country to country problem. In Ethiopia, it's very hard to know what culturally is going to work there if you're from Kenya. You actually don't understand that until you go. And so that was the gap I saw, and I started solving it by creating more content that was telling the story of tech in Africa.
And I mean, I think it's implicit, but I'd love to hear in your own words the impact that you were looking for, either before or after the viral post, for instance, right? The gap that you were filling, which is a very clear one now and how you defined it, but what was the impact that you had in mind?
So my thinking was it was a bit more to it. So I was thinking I would create this content online that tells these stories and provides insights and brings experts together. Yeah. Then my thinking was, so I've raised a small fund at this point, and I was investing small tickets into startups. Small being $20,000 into companies. And I was looking to raise a second fund that was a lot bigger and invest into more companies across Africa. To me, I thought that was impact. I was like, there's not enough capital across Africa for great companies. And so if I can plug in and provide capital to great companies, they'll grow and they'll build generational companies that will have a lot of impact across the continent. Yeah. That was my thinking. And I thought writing content for a global audience brings the whole world in. And so it helps me become a better investor, it helps me raise more money, it helps me meet founders. So that was my initial thinking. After a year of just doing the writing and building a business around that, media and events as well, bringing people together, I realized that the more interesting thing to solve was for that connection piece. Africa is so fragmented. And the biggest challenge in Africa, I think, is people say it's all these things. I think it's asymmetry, where you have 54 countries. You have all these players who are trying to do stuff across different countries, like World Bank, IFC, GIZ, all these different players. You have great companies, you have great global companies trying to expand, you have experts, but no one's actually effectively able to bring them together for the right thing. And if you can solve that gap, you actually unlock a lot of value. If you're Netflix and trying to scale across Africa, you need someone who you can plug into to accept your payments. So you can go live in Nigeria. Right. Really hard to know who the right person is. And if you're sitting in Amsterdam looking online, it's very hard to understand which company will perform best. Yeah. So if you can actually solve this problem, there's a lot of value to be created.
Interesting. Okay. We were talking about this right before we started, and I want to turn to the journey, if you will. You didn't start in this space.
No.
Would you be okay with telling us a little bit about that journey of where you were and how it took you to where you are right now?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess my impact journey started when I my first job out of uni, which was in the peace and security space in East Africa. So I had studied policy, and I was looking at really it's called post-conflict reconstruction. How do you patch up a society after there's been a conflict? Right. What are the things or levers that you pull? Sometimes it's deploying troops. Other times, and most times, it's economic participation, or bring people together to talk, things like this. Did projects in Somalia, South Sudan, borders of Ethiopia and Sudan. And I think after 2.5 to 3 years in that job, I realized two things happened. One was I realized that the incentive structure behind some of these organizations was not always impact. In fact, it was more about like donor cycles in some cases. And then also like really the agenda was driven not by the interests of people on the ground. It was driven by people in Europe and the US, whichever country had a dominant perspective. That didn't sit well with me. And then the second was that while I was living in Ethiopia, I was taking like the Ethiopian version of an Uber called Ride, which was started by this Ethiopian woman who was basically trying to solve her own problem of not feeling safe in taxis and blue taxis.
Okay.
And she built this like platform, which was Uber, but contextualized to Ethiopia.
Nice.
And my drivers were, so there's one aspect, which is like this woman getting, like this engineer getting rich off building a solution to her own problem. That's interesting. Then on the other side, my drivers were like physiotherapists and like engineers and like students. They were all earning more money on this app than they were in their jobs that they'd studied for years. And it just blew my mind. I was like, this doesn't make any sense, but I want to be involved in this. This is like actual power distribution change. Like this is like providing opportunities for people, but also like the people benefiting from this aren't the US or like Europe. It's like these entrepreneurs on the ground.
Absolutely.
So I was like, I don't know what this is, but I want to be involved in this. And in 2020, COVID started. I moved back to Australia. And yeah, I just sat down for like literally months and just thought about what was next. And tech came up. This was like the 2020 era where I was like, I'm going to do tech. I don't know how, but I'm going to try to get into this space.
Okay.
And I was very lucky that my first thing I joined, like I joined my friend in like raising money for this company that it was just a piece of paper at the time, but we grew it into entry level, which is this company that was doing ed tech. And we really scaled that. And so that was my first foray into tech. It was quite lucky. And then there was an era after that where I was like, I left entry level, but I went to like move it to focus on this like media building piece.
Right.
When I had that insight about like this context thing being an issue.
Yeah. Okay.
That's when I flew back to Australia. I was like, okay, I'm going to spend no money. I'm going to live in my parents' spare room. I'm going to write every day. And let's just see what happens.
But you know what's really cool about that is, and I want to know about your thinking at that time, right? Because I think for a lot of young 20-somethings, that decision won't be easy necessarily. I mean, you really have to believe in the idea that you're trying to bring to fruition to make that decision to go back home.
Yeah.
So I want to know, like, were there hopes? Were there fears with that?
Yeah.
What was going through your mind in that decision? Like, Mom, Dad, I'm back.
Yeah. There was so much. There was a lot happening. I think it was a lot of change for me at the same time.
Yeah. At
the end of 2022, and I kind of said, so there were a couple things I did. I was like a bit more like mathematical about it. And I'll start with this. Like the only reason I could do that is because I'm extremely privileged. I was born in Australia. I have like a bunch of skills. I have a degree. If everything goes wrong, I know I can like always go back to my parents' place and just, pick up where I started and like get a job somewhere. So I have this like base level of security that most people don't have across the world. And I was like, I need to leverage that to do something more risky. That's what's the point in having security if you don't use it.
I dig it. Yeah.
For a swing. And I think when I decided to move into tech, I was like, I'm going to make multiple swings. I'll probably fail, but that's okay. So that was the first one. The second was I said, I'm going to give it 3 months. After 3 months, if this doesn't feel like it's moving in a direction to like help me raise this fund or do something, I'll stop and I'll go get a job somewhere, or I might go back to my company. That was also an option for me. And so that was it. And then I think what happened was I shifted the goalpost a little bit. I think there was so much traction. I wanted to like make more money from the company in the first 3 months, but I was like, I'll just focus on growing the like network.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I want to meet these people, and they're mostly not in Australia. So I flew to the US and did this like tour. I think that's when I got like real conviction. Yeah. I went to SF, did like a meetup, and then I did a big event with, at the time, the highest valued African tech company called Cash.
Okay.
In the HQ in San Francisco. And like the co-founders were there. I was like, my mind was blown because I was like a new person in the space. And then did an event in New York and then DC, and they all were super well turned, like had great turnout, made money.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is viable. This is real. Now I have to go figure out like how to like really grow and scale this thing and what it will be. So.
Yeah. But when you are new to a space and you're building something out, I can imagine that it's like, what you're trying to bring to the table. You can see it, you can see the gap, you can see the value that you're bringing in. What was it like speaking to others who might not have seen the same vision as you?
I think the unfortunate but like true thing, and I'm trying to think about whether this is true across the board. It might not be. Was that I didn't know actually. I didn't even know what I was doing. I think for a long, I was just like, this just is a thing and it's real.
Right. Okay.
You know, it's like I've got something. I think like when I think about founders, I've invested in now like 35 founders and supported a bunch with their growth journeys. And I'm a founder myself, so like I have a deep understanding, I would say, of like what makes like how to build a company in the different ways. The way I've always built companies is like we follow growth. So we try like a million things, and then wherever we find like that there's like some sort of reaction, we just chase that and see what we learn from that. Yeah. Sometimes it leads you to a gold mine. Sometimes it leads you nowhere. Sometimes it's just like a sugar rush. And I think for me, I was like, this is clearly something that we're missing because people are saying that it's really needed. Yeah. It's clearly something that's bringing people together and providing value because people keep reading it and like people want to sponsor. What is it though? And like, what's the vision of it? And that's what actually came later and with time.
Okay.
And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to start something based on the traction and then build it into something else. The key thing is you have to have, I would say, the operational ability and like the ability to like turn it into something after the fact. Because anyone can get a sugar rush. Like anyone can go viral on LinkedIn today. In fact, it's easier than ever. So the question is like, how do you build a moat and how do you build something that's like enduring and provides value over the long term, not just the short term?
I imagine that it wasn't always a solo realization, right? Like, were there people that helped to influence this thinking? And like, was there ever a special influential person in this journey of yours?
There were definitely like adjacent models. Yeah. So like there were a few companies that had, there are a few people who had built companies that were like based on newsletters. One of my favorite is called Sam Parr, and he writes The Hustle, which he sold to HubSpot for like $30 million. And it's like a newsletter that's just covering tech news and like, you know, entrepreneur news in the US. So like people like this who I had like been listening to, digesting their content, I was like, that's the model of what it could be. So that's a good starting point. In terms of co-creating it or inspiration, there's definitely people I spoke to, but I think it was just new and not standard to the point that like it almost wasn't that valuable. Like I talk every day. I would talk to like 3 to 5 people on the continent. So like when I was in my parents' room, I wasn't just writing. I was actually meeting every single person I could. Yeah. Everyone who was a founder to potentially invest, everyone who was like an ecosystem person, just building the network so I could build up these data points. I would say everyone gave me a great perspective on what's happening, but actually the outsider view looking in was the most helpful thing.
Interesting. Outsider view of what you were doing or outside the space?
It's like, so if I started the company because I was like, I'd grown up like, or like I had worked at a tech company in Africa and then I decided to like start a tech company in Africa, I would only be looking at it from this perspective of like, I'm in the ecosystem. I only know the players around me and like the important people around me. And that's predefined. I think when you come from the outside, so like sitting in Australia, looking at the whole ecosystem, I'm like, that looks interesting. That looks interesting. They're on different sides of the continent. Or like, there's all these different things happening. How do I capture all of them to make this, to build up this like knowledge of what's happening? Right. So being out actually gives you great perspective in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to take us back a few years, if that's okay with you. Cool. So I did a little bit of creeping through your LinkedIn profile. And I came across the Aware Project, Humanity, and a few others.
Great.
I'm doing my job.
Yeah, good.
So, okay, with those in mind, and also now with Tech Safari, and I think proximity as well, I would say you're very consistently someone who's a doer and, you know, starting things, right? And to me, at least, from a lot of the conversations I have with young people who want to get out there and do something, the toughest thing is getting started. But it seems like you've done that consistently. But I'm really curious, is it an instinct? Is it a muscle that you've strengthened over time?
Yeah, I think it is. I take it for granted, but I do think it is hard to start something. Yeah, I think I was going to speak a bit more to like the building of those things and what it meant and I guess, but I think the idea of starting is an interesting one. And I definitely have had that ingrained. I think I grew up in a town which is very small. It's called Alice Springs. It's in the middle of Australia. All right. It's 30,000 people. The next closest city is like a 16-hour drive. And that's the next, like it's the only place where it's also the closest beach. So if you think about Australia, it's like right in the middle. Wow. In Alice Springs, it's like there's really not a crazy amount of things to do.
Okay.
So a lot of my friend group there, either like they went into creative pursuits.
Yeah.
So actually if you're like actually big musicians now in Australia, or they're artists, or like if you were me, I was like, I'm not really creative. What can I do that like helps curate things? So I got really into like coordinating like art projects and like starting initiatives across my town. And so I think that instinct of like wanting to apply, like just being able to have this like space where I could do things has really helped. And that's like the background behind starting these projects. That's like helped me a lot. So I think it is a muscle, and the way that you build it is you just like, you have to be very okay with putting very bad work out there.
Okay.
That's how you start. Like,
it's not
honestly,
easy,
that's
man.
it. Yeah, it's not easy. No. And I think like you have to be embarrassed by the work you do. When you said like a web project and humanity, I physically cringed. Yeah. I was like, I want to, but like, to be fair, that was like, and at the time I thought that was like the best work I could do as well.
Okay.
And I took time on it, but I just got it out there. And I think that's really important. It's like your work that you look back at will not be as good as what you will become. And that's actually an evolution. Like that's how you grow as an operator and as a leader. You just have to be okay with putting very mid work out there and doing that repeatedly to learn. Otherwise it just stays inside and you never launch it. And then you're like, you're essentially a has-been, and you don't want to be that. You want to be someone who does things.
No, ideas festering are never great. But listen, as your friend, it is my duty to elongate the cringe. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about those projects?
Yeah, sure. So a web project, I was just like, hey, we don't have a platform to talk about like real issues that are real in my town. And so I said, why don't we create a space where people can submit stories that like are really direct and honest about like what they're experiencing. It could be like mental health, could be like racism, whatever. And the idea is we just amplify those stories. And then it moved from that to interviewing actually like really interesting musicians about like their perspectives on things. And so we interviewed like a lot of local musicians. We also interviewed like a lot of big musicians, like, you know, Goitia, the guy who did Someone I Used to Know. Yeah, I interviewed him. Tash Sultana, who was also big at the time, and a few others. And like, this was really like getting their perspectives on like how they thought about the world and like what they thought, you know, their experiences with some of these issues. And so it became that sort of project, and then a video project. It was really just like, let's do something good and like, let's do something fun. And I did it with a few friends. And then, it just made no sense in terms of funding. Like, like who's going to pay for that? So I was like, okay, I'm going to close that down. And that was really interesting because it really was my identity.
Wow.
And I think like at the time you associate the things you do with who you are. That's normal. But I think the faster you can separate those two things, the more you'll be comfortable putting out more work out there.
Like separating the sense of self from the thing that you're creating, essentially.
I
think that's very hard for some people to do when you pour your heart into it, right?
Yeah, it is. It's super hard. I think that it's like I could only get to doing it by experiencing it and being like, well, that sucks, but I'm okay with, and it took me months. I actually had this amazing group of mentors who helped me with it, who are now some of my closest friends. And I was like, I didn't talk to them for a few months because I thought I'd let them down by closing it down.
Oh, wow.
And they all told me, we don't give a shit about what you did. We actually care about you.
That's cool.
We actually really cared about you and back what you're doing, and we're excited for what you'll do next.
Yeah.
And that's true most of the time. So I guess the question to ask is like, hey, if this thing ends tomorrow, how will I feel? And am I ready for that? It's weird, but like it's this powerful like disassociation between you and the thing. You don't attribute your self-worth to the thing. And you shouldn't attribute your self-worth to things. You should attribute it to like performance. Because sometimes you actually just get unlucky. Like a lot of great companies fail because they get unlucky or something falls through. We saw this with like Cocoa Networks, for instance.
Yeah,
you know, like
good reference.
It's not that whole company is a failure.
Yeah.
It's that like things didn't line up the way that they expected them to.
Absolutely.
And that happens in business and life.
And I think you mentioned something right now about like, if this ends tomorrow, that feeling. And do you think there's a bit of, I don't know, like invincibility you get from a moment of like seeing this could end and I'm going to still try my hardest as well.
Yeah.
Like things could end, the idea could die, it could fail. Is that something?
Yeah,
how do you perceive
100%.
that?
It's so true. It's like when you know how like you really want something, like you're like I really want this thing, and you're like gripping to it so tightly that you're unable to like kind of let go and like allow the thing to happen.
Yeah.
I think it's the same with needing outcomes. You can do everything you can to achieve an outcome, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's just not in your control.
Right.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that you can like become very good at what you do and like execute to the best of your ability, but a lot of the time you will fail. So yeah, but once you realize that that's normal, it's like less daunting and you have less fear, and then you can actually create more. You can put more work out there.
Yeah.
You can fail more. I really admire people who, I used to think it was cringe, and then I'm actually like, now when I think about it, I really admire people who just go and launch things. I think it does matter the quality of the things you launch. You have to get better over time, but like people just go for it. I'm like, there's so much respect in that because it's so hard to start.
Yeah.
And like people who don't just do one thing and stick to it forever, but try different things, they usually find the thing that works for them.
I like that. Someone brought it up to me at actually the Ag Safari event.
Nice. Yeah.
The topic of range and of like gathering more range as well, and like living life in a way that it's like, let's say career-wise, you're trying different things out, kind of putting yourself to the test constantly and seeing how far you can take your ideas and your skills as well. It's
so addictive. It's like, I love it. I think it's like I love when there's a really good book called The Inner Game of Tennis, which is a very tech bro book, but it's basically like this idea of like mental game and then like how you think about the thing and then how you execute the thing and separating those two a bit. And there's like your inner game of tennis and then there's the outer game of tennis. And the inner game always is like, oh, like this thing's going to be hard, or like, oh, I messed this thing up or whatever. But actually the goal is to clear up your inner game and just focus on what feels right and like being in essentially like a flow state.
Yeah.
But the main challenge and the proposition is when you're playing this inner game, the best thing you can do is like apply your skills to the greatest test and like apply that to like something that feels just a bit out of reach. And when you like test these ideas against your executional ability to make them come to life is when you get better. And also when you like have more confidence in yourself. And like one example, like my sister is like creating art as well. She's like 16. And I was like, can you make this for me? And she's like, like I can see the thing. I just don't know if I can do it. Like I can ideate it, but I don't know if I can execute it. I'm like, oh, like just try it then. Then you have to try it to see how you go and like what the difference is.
Yeah.
And that's where you actually improve your range. It's that difference between what you think you can do and like what you do.
Yeah. I want to take it back to Tech Safari now. And I think what you're mentioning over here it sounds like it comes from a series of lessons learned, probably.
Heaps, yeah.
Could you tell us about a time that you maybe faced resistance, faced a hurdle that was pretty large with Tech Safari?
Yeah, there's like every year there's like one or two things that almost like destroy the company. So like not destroy, but just like near death experience. Like whoa.
It's like a phoenix.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think of the best one to share. I think there's less and less as you go on, but yeah, maybe one time was this is a really good applied one. We built a function of the company that was trying to do a growth agency, helping other companies grow their social presence. I basically was like, this is a great opportunity to make money very quickly. And like, we did a test and it generated heaps of like cash. So like, let's apply all this to like building out this business function. I probably built it with not the right people and like way too quickly. And I think that, that's fine. You know, you're meant to start things and fail. But that whole process of like bringing people on, some of them full time, like 6 or 7 people in the end, and then having to let them go because it didn't work, or because it was working but we were just so exhausted, was gut wrenching. And I think the follow-on effect of that is like not long after that I got really sick and I was actually in hospital for 12 days. And I didn't even know what was happening. I was like, I can't go to hospital. I go to work. Like I'm behind. I just wasted all this time, like 3 months on this project. So that's like an on the edge moment, and a moment where it's like your body is telling you got to stop because we can't keep taking it. And I realized I hadn't had proper like downtime for about a year and like 9 months since I started the company. Yeah. There was no period where I was like, I'm finally like healthy or relaxed or like stable. And I think that really taught me that, especially as a founder in the early stage, your company is tied to your durability and your sustainability. And a lot of that is really like, how do you take care of yourself? Are you actually listening to yourself? It's like taking care of the basics so that you can then do the work itself.
Yeah.
And that changed a lot of my mindset. I do think that parts of what I had to do in the first year, I just had to do it. The first year of anything, it's hard. And it's like, you're grinding, you don't know if it's going to work, so you're trying to move really quickly. But I do think that like for the business I'm trying to build, it's actually more valuable for me to be super healthy and like on top of my game and making good decisions versus like running around and like doing things very quickly and like in the wrong direction.
That makes sense. And I was going to actually bring up the hospitalization moment. And I mean, you made a LinkedIn post about it, which is a choice.
A choice. It was a good post.
It was a great
It was interesting.
Post.
It was like health system in Kenya. I just experienced it for 12 days.
Yeah.
So like, here's what I learned and here's my takeaway.
Which for me, and I wasn't here at the time, it was insightful. But I did find it interesting because we now know it was burnout, right? And some effective burnout. And we've talked about like kind of seeing things at the end and just like not knowing where things are going to go and all the, you know, invincibility that you might feel in certain moments. But at that point, and I think you wrote this in the post, like your family's super far from you right now. You didn't know what was going on at the time. It was a big question mark. When you have that responsibility of like people looking up to you within the company, you know, there's execution to be done, responsibilities that you have to people. What were the things running through your mind in that moment? And did you have any thoughts about, you know, what could happen after this?
Yeah. So I think a lot of things happened. I think my body was trying to tell me, it was actually so weird. It was like I was in hospital for like 9 days, and then eventually I gotta leave. I had to go, guys, like this, you know, and I had gotten better, so it was good.
Okay, good.
And then I was getting discharged, and that day I was like, well, I'm getting discharged, back to work. And so I did like all these meetings. It was really stressful. I was like, whoa, there's so much happening. And then that same day, I actually got readmitted because I had like the symptom came back and like it was way worse. And I also think they misdiagnosed the problem, so that's a part of it. But the main thing was I'd gotten better, but I triggered it back by bringing stress back in.
Got it.
And I think what I learned then and there was like I hadn't learned the lesson, which is actually your body does keep score, and you need to take care of that first. And like that lifestyle wasn't sustainable. So I think that was really interesting. And I kind of said, well, look, if I'm in hospital for like another month, which I've just been here for 9 days, like feasibly I could stay here for another 18, like who knows, because this is worse. Like what's going to happen to this company? It's probably not going to go so well. Or I'll be like doing 2 hours a day at most.
Right.
What happens then? And I was like, well, we will fail as a business. So at this point that we're at, we don't have strong enough leaders. Like we'll fail as a company because I need to like be in between a lot of stuff. So that's when I was like, okay, well, I have to just like let go. And I have to like, it was that same thing of like letting go and being like, what will happen will happen. Wow. I'll do what I can, but I'm not going to push too hard. I'm just going to let my body catch up.
Gotcha.
So that's how I dealt with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause when people think of founders, I think the term control is really not that far off, right? There's a connection between being a founder and control of so many different things. But what you just described is surrendering.
Yes.
And that's not a word that I think a lot of people associate with the kind of lifestyle or the kind of work that you do.
Yeah.
And the prospect of being a doer is kind of also like, I'm gonna do stuff, you know? And there's a lot of control that comes with that. But the prospect of surrendering is not something that I think people prepare for.
But yeah, I think that's the perfect word to describe what we've been talking about, which is like surrendering to this idea that you could fail and like you will fail actually. And being like, no, you will fail, but you're like statistically likely to fail if you start any venture. And being like okay with that. Yeah. That doesn't mean you can't work really fucking hard. You can't control an outcome. And when you try to control an outcome too much, that's when you end up in this situation where you end up with like less than like positive scenarios. It's really weird. And I think a lot of business and even just like starting anything and doing life is paradox, because my biggest value, and I've had to balance next to this idea of surrendering, is called high agency. Familiar with?
Yes.
So it's like the best way to test who your most high agency friend is. Okay, if you were stuck in a third world jail cell, which friend would you call and why? And it's not really about their political connections, like scrap that. It's not about like, do they love you a lot, so will they do it? Just like, who would be the most capable person to get you out of that jail cell if they knew no one? That's your most high agency friend. And you always want to be that friend for someone else. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you're that friend for someone else, you're someone who will get shit done. And so you kind of, there's no real definition for it. You just spot it. You know it when you spot it. It's people who don't agree with the status quo. They are like, look for any way to make something happen.
Yeah.
And they think in first principles. They're like, okay, A equals B equals C, therefore this is how we'll solve the problem. This also means like not accepting no. Like it means like when life or like business is saying no, it's not going to work, you find another way, or you make it happen. Or sometimes you just say no, it will work actually, or you just like someone declines you, like this is why you will not decline me. And sometimes that's the conversation you have to have. So like surrender doesn't mean give up. It just means like be okay with whatever outcome happens, but do whatever you can to make it happen if you're high agency. So I balance these two ideas, and they're both really important. But like they're at odds with each other. Yeah,
they absolutely are. But to the same point, I'm curious about a failure that you're glad happened in retrospect, obviously.
Yeah. I think this agency thing was a big one. Like we built something. It was actually really good because we built something, spent resources on it, spent time on it. And then I think I learned the value of time. It was like spending 3 months on this project, leaving the rest of the company alone instead of building the core thing. It taught me this very important lesson actually about project selection. So actually more important than like even your executional ability or blah, blah, blah. I think like hard work is like in the top 5 things, but it's probably like number 5 in terms of, it's not the most important. All right. And talent might be like number 3 or 4. The most important thing is actually what are you building, right? Like project selection. Right. Like at entry level, we had like a pretty good team, but like we chose the wrong project. It was like ed tech. You know, there's really not that many ed tech winners. If you look at like all the public listed companies in ed tech, they're not huge. There's not many. The company got acquired, but it was like, which is a great outcome for ed tech, but it wasn't a good project to build. And like recruitment also isn't a great space if you're trying to build like this recruitment system attached to it in that sort of venture-backed model. So I think project selection was the most important. I learned that because I spent like 3 months building something that generated money, but just sucked as a business to run. And like it was too taxing and we didn't have the right team for. So I think project selection is like what I learned from failing at that level. Maybe some other stuff last year was like, I think my biggest learning last year was about the quality of team. Like my best things that happened last year were team, my worst things were team. Damn. Picking the wrong people, or picking great people who are not the right fit. Like I would rather go, I'm stealing this from Paystack because this is the quote they use, like going at the right speed with the right people than going really fast with the wrong people. It's way better to go at the right speed with the right people. Because those are people who are bought in on the long term. And I think a lot of the time, people who are part of Tech Safari, like historically, not a lot of the time, but like historically, it's been people who have wanted to be associated with brands, maybe not the right incentive for like joining a company and building like something that will be generational and like impact focused and long term. So now I really screen for like who's going to be here for years. Not who's the best person for this job. And then obviously highly talented too. And then they can typically learn the things that need to be done.
So would you say that you surround yourself, at least in the professional sphere, with folks whose values align more with what you're thinking longer term right now? They're going to go the distance with you.
Yeah, I would say not just values, because I think it's easy to get value-driven people. Or not always, but like it's values and standards. It's also like how do you operate? And is your level of operating like at par? And I think I've had to have the conversation with almost everyone on my team about this is the standard here. And it's higher than probably what you've done before. That's good. And we want to help you grow to that standard. But if you can't be here. So you can be an amazing like strategic genius or like an amazing executor. But if you don't like respond to emails in time, or if you don't show up to calls, or even if you don't present properly, you can't be part of the company, because we're a public media company. Like we're known for media. We do a lot of other things, but like the way we present is really everything. So I think it's what I screen for is the lesson in talent was like choose the right talent and get to know them properly and make sure they're the right people. And then make sure that they're up to standard and drill that in from the beginning. Make it really clear what the standard is so you can like very easily see if someone is a fit or isn't. I feel like when you're hiring, you don't want to try and make it work with someone. You want to polarize really quickly. You want to be like the best outcome is understanding yes, you're a fit, or no, you're not a fit, not being in between. So you want to drive as quickly to that outcome as possible.
Gotcha.
And the way we do it, I don't know if this is like sustainable, but like we just throw people on projects like, here, run this, we'll help you, let us know what you need. And then like sometimes they thrive, other times they don't. And it's like, cool, these are the things to fix. And other times it's really telling. It's like, okay, well, there's too many things to fix, so we don't think this will work.
So there was a time not too long ago, I think you and I were having a chat, and we were talking about some of the lessons you've learned and things that you're focusing on and systems that you put in place. And I think something that was driven home for me was being more comfortable with saying no, and also like being a bit more particular with your systems. And it just got me thinking, I think a lot of young people feel this tension between, making the most of their relative youth and the freedoms that we usually have at this age and stage of our lives of like maybe no dependence or few dependencies. And there's this tension between that and wanting to lock in and make the most of our time. Let's say in this instance, tech safari, and while you're even with proximity as well, right? These are high responsibility jobs. And I'm wondering if there's been, let's say, an opportunity cost or like a tension that you feel from within of, but I'm young and I want to, go experience stuff and do cool things, which I'm sure you still do. But has there been a tension that you feel between this stage of life and what you're building?
Yeah, interesting. I think there has been for the first like 2-ish years, up until last year when I like really locked in on like, okay, I need to make sure that this is more sustainable. I think that the way I would live, which was traveling a lot, really deep in work, getting deep in things and systems and like making sure things happen, meant that I couldn't focus on things that were important to me. And those things that were important to me was like, I think the easy things to do, it's easy to socialize, it's easy to see friends, it's easy to have like cool travel experiences. Like when you're working really hard and then that's the only outlet you have or thing you do, that's almost like escapism in some ways.
Right.
And so what I struggled with was like the systems for like going to the gym or having hobbies or like exercising or spending quality time with friends, not just going out with them. And, even relationships, like stuff like this is stuff I didn't have time for until more recently when this company has matured a bit. Yeah. So I think that's been one of the things. It's been less about like wanting to go get it, because I actually think the definition of wanting to go get it, I'm living out through Tech Safari. Like I'm my most ambitious self through Tech Safari. It's surreal, actually. It's like we can come up with an idea that we think is interesting and creates value. And we're pretty confident we can get funded. So we'll be like 100% take our money, like go build this out. This will be great. It's very hard to get into a situation where that happens, but that's where we are. And so I think like my most ambitious self is living its dreams right now. It's like actually amazing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love to hear that.
Yeah. I think the only thing that will change is like the scope. And so now like the interesting challenge is, okay, I've managed like 6-figure budgets. What does a 7-figure budget look like? Like, how do we build a team around that? How do we execute that? And that's a really fun thing.
Yeah.
That's like growth as a leader as well. So I think that's like very cool. So I don't feel like the ambition side's missing. I also don't feel like the experience side's missing. The part that usually goes missing for people this age, and maybe it's okay because like we're young, is the sustainability piece. Like, how do you do this for like not just 3 years and burn out? How do you do this for like decades? That's where I'm trying to like spend more time now. And in fact, my goal this year is literally just getting used to like having time to do things. And it's weird. It's so hard. It's like I wake up and I'm like, I need to start work. I'm like, nope, you're going to stay in bed for a bit longer. You're going to like wait till 8:30. I'm like, these are my work hours. I'm trying to like get used to that. And obviously there are times where like I'll work super hard and I want to, but right now it's not required. It's actually not, it's not a necessity. And there's this thing around, again, like moving at the right pace for where you are. And I think our team is like really good, but they're also like, when we're at capacity, there's not as much like requirement for like scaling things up really quickly.
Yeah.
Now it's more about team design, structure, building relationships with partners. So I think also my role as a CEO has completely changed from year one, where I'm like writing the newsletters in my parents' room,
right.
and editing stuff and like, emailing everyone, to like year 2 where now I'm like building a team to help with some of the operation stuff, to year 3 where now we have like proper leaders who can run functions of the company and don't need our help. So it just changes every year.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. And so balancing your life with that is the other thing. The one thing I'll say, like we work in the tech space, a lot of the people that we will work around are startups or VCs, and these are people who raise capital, but the function of that capital is to grow the capital quickly. What's more valuable to me is like building an enduring company for decades that really is the infrastructure of how tech and business in Africa operates. That means like building a lifestyle around it. And like some people in VC will like, venture capital in the US is like, oh, that's a lifestyle business, but actually it can still be like doubling every year is high growth.
Absolutely.
And like growing that, like that relationship base is high growth. And so I think that's the mentality shift I had to make, because when you're working with startups, you think you have to grow as fast as them, but that's actually not true.
Well, that's really cool. I mean, being able to kind of pull yourself out of the ecosystem that you're in as well and be like, actually, this doesn't apply to me entirely right now.
Yeah.
And seeing what works for you. And also, I think, informed by your previous experiences and where you want to see this going.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a couple rapid fire questions. I said I was done earlier. I lied. What's the toughest part about doing?
Ooh, when you do things in the wrong direction.
Okay.
So which is actually doing without thinking.
Hey, full circle moment.
Yeah, that was.
I love that. What drives you?
Impact, strong sense of justice, I would say, personally. Like my value system where I'm like, that's unjust and needs to change.
And if you could describe the current season that you're in in one word or two, however many you need, what would it be?
I think it's design. Yeah.
Okay.
Design and space. Like it's like now it's more about designing the thing than like doing the thing. Now it's more about like sitting with people to be like, what do we think we can build together as like in partnership, and then building the team. What do we think we can build together as a team? And like it's that same thing of like making these two things meet: what you ideate versus what you can actually executionally do.
Yeah.
That's a design question. It's not a doing question.
I feel like that's the next step. Okay, cast your mind 40, 50 years from now, if you can. If you were looking back at this era of your life, what is it that you would want to take away from this moment / what you are doing currently? And with Tech Safari, proximity, everything that you've done so far, how do you want to look back at this time?
Yeah, I want to do this probably every like 2 years, but like, you know, in 50 years, be like, man, I was so stupid back then. Like, that's a great thing. Like, and not like stupid, like just like I know so much more now. I think that idea of like acquiring wisdom and knowledge is really important. And I want to look back and be like, I'm proud that this era has started. Like there are a lot of things that could have prevented it as well from starting. You know, like when your family is in like a different country and they moved abroad for you and you're like moving back, and your friends are mostly in one country. And the thing you're doing is like you don't have money for it yet. You haven't raised like there's a lot of constraints on doing what we've been able to start. And I think when I look back, I'll be like, I'm really glad that I went for it. I just swung. You know, I think that's the thing I'd be most happy with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Caleb, thank you so much for being with us here and for sharing your journey.
It's been such a pleasure. It's been so fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So good.
So good.
So good. That was Caleb Maru, founder of Tech Safari, early stage investor, and someone who is balancing thinking with doing. The thing that stuck with me most from this conversation was Caleb's point about cringing at some of his past projects. I thought it was hilarious, but also eye-opening to think that at one point, Caleb thought that was the max that he could do, only to go forward and do more and realize more of his potential. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who's figuring out their path. It's the kind of conversation that tends to land differently depending on where you are in your journey. You can find and follow Caleb and Tech Safari. I'll drop the links in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review. It helps more people find the show. And this is only episode 1, so we're just getting started. Until next time, go do something.